As dangerously cold temperatures continue in southern Wisconsin, outreach teams are hitting the streets, bringing warmth, food, and connection to people with nowhere else to go. WMTV's Shayna Najawan spent the morning following one of those mobile outreach routes and joins us now with how they're meeting people where they are. Shayna.
That outreach happens rain, snow, or extreme cold. And the team behind it says the need keeps growing as more people are pushed further from downtown Madison. The group says winter outreach is about more than just supplies, it's about dignity.
Hot meals, the pancakes and sausage.
Before most of Madison is fully awake, a small van begins its weekend route, stopping where people are living, sleeping, and trying to stay warm.
The van has just basic, essentials that people would ask for.
Beth Malio helps lead the outreach team with Friends of the State Street family.
We do visit State Street every time we do outreach, but we also know that people are sleeping in their cars or in encampments.
She says COVID shifted where people experiencing homelessness could safely go, pushing many into cars, encampments, and far east side locations.
Some people come or they maybe are sleeping in shelters, but they're not going downtown. So we try to visit the libraries on the weekends as well, where people are trying to stay warm or cool in the summer.
Every weekend, teams distribute winter boots, coats, and snow pants, along with hot food donated by the community.
So this might be their only chance to get a hot meal, in a week.
That food is often prepared by community partners like One Love, One Lunch, founded by Art Wynn.
We started with basic comfort food like chili and tater tot casserole.
Wynn says bringing meals directly to people makes a difference, especially for those who can't easily access shelters or meal sites.
Started making like Mexican lasagna and other types of food, and they loved it, so it was pretty rewarding to do that.
For Maglio, the work goes beyond food and winter gear.
Things that we value as a group are empathy and dignity.
She says showing up consistently and with compassion is what builds trust.
It's also a way of really hammering in that we care and show up over and over again, so it's not just one and done.
And the outreach team relies entirely on donations and volunteers and say even small acts of kindness can go a long way during these cold winter months. Live in the studio, Shayna Najawan, WMTV 15 News.
Shayna, thank you. Friends of the State Street family say the biggest needs right now are hot meals, winter clothing, and monetary donations. You can also volunteer behind the scenes by helping prepare meals or donating supplies.